What started as a dream adventure in Africa turned into a tragedy no one saw coming. A Dutch student set off to Uganda for safari, full of hope and excitement, but she never returned. What happened to Sophia Koetsier? Today, we unravel a haunting mystery, the chilling and unsolved case of a young woman named Sophia Koetsier. She was just like you, excited about adventure and the beauty of nature. Sophia was a Dutch student, and her dream was to visit Uganda to experience the wildlife and culture of Africa. But something went terribly wrong during her trip, and she disappeared. Let's go through what happened, step by step, and see if we can understand how she ended up vanishing without a trace. Let's dig into the story of Sophia Koetsier. Who was she, and what inspired her to travel to Uganda for safari? Sophia Koetsier was a young woman with a passion for life and a deep curiosity about the world. Born and raised in the Netherlands, she always dreamed of experiencing new places, learning about different cultures, and connecting with the beauty of nature. With a bright smile and an adventurous spirit, Sophia was the kind of person who wanted to see the world, not just through books and pictures, but by living it firsthand. She wasn't afraid to step out of her comfort zone. Whether it was hiking in the mountains, exploring cities, or diving into new experiences, Sophia embraced every moment of a journey. Her friends and family often described her as lively and full of energy, always excited to share stories about the places she'd visited. She loved the idea of travel as a way to expand her horizons and gain new perspectives. She was also someone who cherished the simple pleasures in life, an evening walk under the stars, or a peaceful moment spent listening to the sounds of nature. Sophia's love for animals was another key part of who she was. As a child, she spent hours learning about wildlife and watching documentaries about exotic animals. She had a deep respect for nature and felt an almost magical connection to the creatures that roamed the earth. She would often tell her friend that one day, she wanted to visit Africa and see the wild animals she had read so much about, especially the elephants, lions, and giraffes. The idea of seeing these magnificent creatures in their natural habitat was a dream she held close to her heart. When Sophia started planning her trip, she decided on Uganda, a country known for its rich wildlife and stunning landscapes. Uganda is home to some of the most incredible safaris in Africa, offering opportunities to see endangered mountain gorillas, savanna elephants, and a variety of other animals. The country's national parks, such as Queen Elizabeth and Bwindi Impenetrable Forest, are some of the world's most famous spots for wildlife enthusiasts. The thought of spending time in these beautiful places, surrounded by nature, was something Sophia couldn't resist. She booked a safari tour that would take her through Uganda's diverse landscapes, where she would have the chance to see animals up close and learn from experienced guides about the ecosystem and wildlife. It wasn't just about seeing the animals, it was about connecting with the land and understanding the importance of conservation. Sophia wanted to be part of something bigger, to experience firsthand the efforts being made to protect the planet and its creatures. For Sophia, traveling wasn't just about ticking off a bucket list. It was about immersing herself in the culture of the places she visited. She had a keen interest in local traditions and the way people lived in different parts of the world. Uganda's rich culture, with its music, dance, and traditions, fascinated her. She often spoke to her friends about how much she was looking forward to learning from the locals and understanding their way of life. The people of Uganda, with their kindness and warmth, made it even more appealing to her. She knew this journey would be more than just a vacation. It would be a life-changing experience. Sophia's excitement was palpable. She couldn't wait to share the beauty of Uganda with her family and friends. Her social media accounts were filled with posts and pictures about her plans, with updates on her flight, the safari tours, and the stunning sights she was preparing to witness. Her love for adventure was infectious, and everyone around her knew how much she looked forward to this trip. She had even started a blog to document her travels, hoping to inspire others to follow their dreams and explore the world. But little did anyone know, this dream trip to Uganda would end in a way no one could have imagined. Sophia was full of excitement, anticipation, and hope for what lay ahead. She was ready for the adventure of a lifetime, and for her, Uganda was the perfect place to make those dreams come true. Sadly, Sophia's story took a turn no one saw it coming. What was meant to be a beautiful journey, filled with wildlife, adventure, and learning, turned into a tragic mystery that would leave her family, friends, and the world searching for answers. The exciting start of her trip. What was the first thing she did in Uganda? Where did she visit? And what was she expecting to see? Sophia's trip to Uganda started with the kind of excitement that only a dream adventure could bring. She arrived in Entebbe, the country's main international gateway, her heart racing with anticipation. The warm, humid air greeted her as she stepped out of the plane and into the vibrant pulse of Africa. She couldn't help but smile as she looked around, knowing this was the start of something unforgettable. Her first few days were spent in the capital city, Kampala, where she met with the tour group that would guide her through the incredible wildlife reserves. Her excitement was palpable, and she could hardly wait to begin her safari adventure. The city itself was a blend of modern life and traditional culture, with bustling markets, colorful streets, and warm, welcoming people. Sophia enjoyed exploring the local food scene, trying Ugandan dishes like Rolex, a rolled chapati filled with eggs, vegetables, and meat, and tasting the rich, aromatic Ugandan coffee. She loved learning about the history of the city and its people, soaking in the vibrant culture that Uganda offered. But the real adventure began when Sophia and her tour group set off for the countryside. They left Kampala early one morning, heading toward Queen Elizabeth National Park, a place known for its incredible diversity of wildlife and stunning landscapes. As the vehicle made its way through the countryside, Sophia's eyes were glued to the window, taking in the endless expanse of green, the dotted villages, and the distant hills. She had read so much about Uganda's beauty, but seeing it firsthand was something entirely different. It felt like stepping into a National Geographic documentary, only this time, she was the one experiencing it. Upon arriving at Queen Elizabeth National Park, she was immediately struck by the sheer scale of the park. It covered over 1,978 square kilometers, and within it were habitats ranging from savannas to wetlands to forests, making it one of the most biodiverse places in Uganda. Sophia's tour guide, a knowledgeable local named Isaac, greeted them and began explaining the various animals they could expect to see. Sophia had always dreamed of seeing lions, elephants, and giraffes up close, and she couldn't contain her excitement. This was the moment she had been waiting for. That afternoon, they set out on the first game drive. The vehicle bounced along dirt roads, and the landscape stretched out like a canvas, golden grasses, wild trees, and the occasional acacia tree casting long shadows in the afternoon sun. The air smelled fresh, the sounds of birds and insects filling the silence between conversations. It was a place of wild beauty, untouched and untamed. It wasn't long before the first animals appeared. A herd of elephants came into view, their massive gray bodies moving slowly through the grass. Sophia's eyes widened in awe. She had seen elephants on television before, but seeing them in real life, watching them interact, feel the ground beneath their feet, and even hear their trumpeting calls, was an experience that took her breath away. She took photos and videos, her hands shaking slightly in disbelief. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. The guide continued to drive, pointing out different animals as they passed by. There were warthogs, baboons, and a variety of antelope grazing in the distance. Sophia could hardly believe how close she was to these animals. She was living her dream, and it was more incredible than she had ever imagined. That evening, they settled into their accommodations at a lodge near the park, a cozy place with open views of the savannah. Sophia was tired but happy, her mind buzzing with the sights she had just witnessed. As she sat on the lodge's patio, sipping a glass of local juice, she thought about how lucky she was to be in such a beautiful, vibrant place. She couldn't wait for the next few days. She had even more plans to visit other parts of Uganda, including Bwindi Impenetrable Forest, known for its rare mountain gorillas. In her blog, she wrote about how excited she was for the gorilla trek ahead. "I've dreamt of this my whole life, and it's finally happening," she typed. Uganda is everything I imagined and more, rich with nature, culture, and an energy I can't describe. Sophia was living her dream, checking off bucket list items one after the other, and she was just getting started. The world was open to her, and Uganda seemed like the perfect place to experience it all. Her heart was full, and for a moment, it felt as if nothing could possibly go wrong. She was ready for whatever adventure awaited her in the coming days, From trekking through the forest in search of gorillas to immersing herself even deeper in the wonders of this amazing country. But little did Sophia know, her adventure was about to take an unexpected and tragic turn. What started as a dream journey would soon become a mystery that would change everything. The events that led to her disappearance. Was there any danger? Or did she go off on her own? Sophia's journey through Uganda had been everything she had hoped for. An adventure filled with wildlife, breathtaking landscapes, and a deep connection to the natural world. But as her safari continued, things began to take an unexpected and tragic turn. The next phase of Sophia's adventure took her to the famous windy impenetrable forest, home to the endangered mountain gorillas. This was the part of her trip that she had been anticipating the most. For days, she had read everything she could about gorilla trekking and the precautions to take. The trek was physically demanding, involving hikes through dense, muddy terrain, but Sophia was prepared. She had been hiking and exploring nature for years and was excited to get a glimpse of these magnificent creatures in the wild. Her group, led by experienced rangers and guides, set off early one morning to track the gorillas. They navigated through thick vegetation, their boots sinking into the wet earth as they moved deeper into the forest. The air was heavy with mist, and the sounds of the forest, birds calling, leaves rustling, created an atmosphere that felt both magical and mysterious. It was an exhilarating experience, but also a bit intimidating. The forest was dense, with towering trees and tangled vines, and the terrain was challenging. At some point during the trek, Sophia's group reached a clearing where they spotted a family of gorillas. The rangers gave the group strict instructions to remain silent and avoid sudden movements. This was a rare moment, and everyone was eager to witness these powerful creatures up close. But they also knew that any disturbance could put the gorillas and themselves in danger. Sophia was thrilled. The moment she had dreamed of was finally here. She watched in awe as a large silverback gorilla appeared from behind the foliage, its massive body moving with an effortless grace. But it wasn't long before something unusual happened. As the group continued to observe the gorillas from a safe distance, Sophia seemed to drift a little further from the group, lost in the wonder of the moment. Perhaps she was so caught up in the experience that she didn't realize how far she had gone. The dense forest made it easy to lose track of your surroundings, and despite being with a group, she had wandered off a little. The guide noticed her absence after a few moments and immediately called out for her. He moved swiftly through the forest, shouting her name. Other members of the group began to look around, but there was no sign of Sophia. The group stopped and began calling for her, but all they heard was the distant hum of the forest. It felt like time stood still as they realized that Sophia was no longer where she had been just minutes ago. Panic set in quickly. The rangers immediately took charge, organizing a search party to find her. They retraced their steps through the thick brush, calling out her name and scanning the area. But the forest was vast, and the fog had begun to roll in, making visibility poor. They searched for hours, but Sophia was nowhere to be found. Sophia's disappearance did not seem to follow the usual pattern of tourists getting lost in the jungle. She hadn't taken any unusual risks or gone off on her own intentionally. There was no sign of her having wandered off for any other reason than being caught in the moment of excitement. The group was careful, and the rangers were experienced, yet no one could explain where she had gone or why no one had noticed her leave. The search continued for the rest of the day, but as the hours passed, hope began to fade. The rangers had a rule. If someone was lost in the forest overnight, the situation could become far more dangerous. The dense vegetation, combined with the possibility of wild animals nearby, made it crucial to find her as quickly as possible. Sophia's family, back in the Netherlands, received the devastating news that their daughter had gone missing in the jungle. It was hard to believe, and harder still to understand how someone so prepared, someone so full of life and excitement, could just disappear without a trace. Search teams from across Uganda were brought in to help, and the authorities coordinated their efforts with the national park rangers. Helicopters flew over the dense forest, scanning the ground below. There were rumors that Sophia had been attacked by a wild animal, or that she had fallen into one of the many ravines or rivers in the area. But despite all the theories, there were no concrete answers. As the days passed, the search intensified, but no evidence of Sophia was found. Her belongings, her backpack, camera, and passport were all left behind, untouched. It was as though she had simply vanished into the forest, without a single trace to explain her disappearance. The mystery of Sophia Koetsier's disappearance left everyone baffled. Was she taken by an animal? Did she slip and fall somewhere hidden from sight? Or was there something more sinister at play? All anyone knew was that Sophia, the young woman with a heart full of dreams and an insatiable curiosity, had set off on what should have been an incredible adventure, but never came back. When Sophia's family and friends first heard the shocking news that she had gone missing in Uganda, disbelief and confusion swept over them. They had always known her as an independent, confident young woman who would never put herself in harm's way. It felt surreal, almost impossible, that someone so full of life could simply disappear. Her parents, especially, were devastated. They had always encouraged Sophia's travels, knowing how much she loved exploring the world. But now, they were grappling with the horror of not knowing where their daughter was. Sophia's mother, Anna, was the first to receive the news. She had been eagerly waiting for updates from Sophia's trip, and when she saw an email notification from Sophia's travel blog, she opened it, hoping to hear about her daughter's latest adventures. Instead, the message was brief and chilling. Sophia is missing. Please help us find her. The email, sent by the safari tour operator, explained that Sophia had become separated from the group during a guerrilla trek, and despite an extensive search, no sign of her had been found. Her heart sank, and she immediately contacted her husband, Eric, and Sophia's closest friends. The family's initial reaction was a mix of panic and urgency. They couldn't comprehend how this could happen. Sophia had always been careful and well prepared for her travels. So how could she have just vanished in the thick jungle of Uganda? Anna and Eric didn't hesitate. They immediately reached out to the Dutch embassy in Uganda, hoping they could assist in the search efforts. They were connected with officials who explained that the search was ongoing, but the dense forest, combined with the rough terrain and weather conditions, made it difficult to cover the entire area. As hours turned into days, the family's anxiety grew. Anna posted about Sophia's disappearance on social media, urging anyone who might have seen something or had any information to come forward. The post quickly spread, and soon, messages of support began flooding in from friends, family, and even strangers who wanted to help. The Dutch press picked up the story, and it wasn't long before the international community became aware of Sophia's plight. Meanwhile, Eric had already booked a flight to Uganda. He couldn't bear the thought of sitting at home while his daughter was out there, alone and possibly in danger. He arrived in Uganda a day later, and from the moment he landed, he was determined to do everything he could to help bring her back. He met with local authorities, safari guides, and even the search teams to get more information on the situation. Every day, he went out with the search parties, combing through the dense undergrowth, hoping to find any trace of Sophia. He couldn't stop thinking about her, the way she would light up when talking about her travels, her excitement to see the world, and the promise she made to keep them updated with every step of her journey. Sophia's friends in the Netherlands, who had known her since childhood, also did everything in their power to help. They contacted people in Uganda, reached out to other travelers who had visited the same safari sites, and coordinated with the embassy to ensure that the search didn't lose momentum. They couldn't believe that their adventurous friend, always so sure of herself, could suddenly be in such a terrifying situation. In addition to the official search teams, a team of volunteers from a non-profit organization focused on missing persons was brought in to help. They were experts in locating missing travelers in remote areas, and they brought in specialized equipment, including drones and search dogs, to cover as much ground as possible. The search parties expanded, moving deeper into the jungle, hoping for a miracle. Sophia's disappearance also sparked conversations on social media, with users around the world sharing their stories about similar experiences or sending well wishes to the family. Many people who had been on safaris in Uganda themselves offered advice and tips on how to navigate the rugged terrain. Others shared their theories on what might have happened, ranging from wild animal attacks to the possibility that Sophia had fallen into a ravine. But despite the flood of information, no one knew for sure what had happened to Sophia. In the midst of all the uncertainty, Sophia's family clung to hope. They refused to believe that something terrible had happened to her. They held on to the belief that she was out there somewhere, scared but alive. The days of searching turned into weeks, and though the search parties never stopped looking, there was still no sign of Sophia. The rangers, the volunteers, and even local villagers who had heard about her disappearance continued to look for any trace of her, but it was as if the jungle had swallowed her whole. It was a painful, agonizing time for Sophia's family and friends. Each new day without answers felt like a crushing blow. Every phone call, every message, every piece of information they received seemed to lead to another dead end. But they never gave up. They continued to fight for Sophia, driven by the love they had for her and the hope that, somehow, she would come back to them. They remained in Uganda, refusing to leave until they had answers, even if it meant staying in the country for weeks. Sophia's disappearance not only left her family shattered, but also cast a shadow over the community of travelers who had witnessed her excitement and love for life. They, too, were determined to bring her home. Every step of the search was filled with desperation, but also with an unyielding commitment to finding Sophia, no matter what it took. As the search for Sophia Koetsier continued, the authorities and search teams combed through the dense forest with painstaking detail. They knew that every clue, no matter how small, could be the key to finding her. But despite their tireless efforts, the search turned up few solid leads. The first major discovery came from Sophia's belongings. After hours of scouring the area around the place where she had last been seen, the searchers found her backpack. It was located near a thicket of bushes, not far from the area where she had been with the rest of the group, just before she wandered off. Inside the backpack were her camera, a few personal items, and a notebook with some travel notes and sketches. There were no signs of a struggle, and nothing appeared to be missing. The contents of the bag seemed to suggest that Sophia had left it behind in a hurry but hadn't been taken by force. The notebook she carried held a few scribbled thoughts from earlier in the day. Some of her writing described her excitement about seeing the gorillas and the beauty of the forest. She had written, "Today is the day I've been waiting for my whole life, the gorillas. The adventure is real, and I can't wait to see more." This note struck her family deeply. It was clear that she had been caught up in the excitement of the moment, but it didn't provide any insight into why she had wandered off or what had happened after she did. Sophia's camera was also examined carefully, and the photos from the day before her disappearance were scrutinized. The images showed her smiling and clearly happy, surrounded by the breathtaking landscapes and wildlife of Uganda. There were pictures of the elephants she had seen, close-up shots of the trees and the wildlife, and even a few selfies that captured her radiant energy. But there were no signs of distress or anything that seemed out of the ordinary in the photos. Nothing that would suggest she was in immediate danger or feeling threatened. As the search moved forward, it became clear that the dense, unforgiving nature of windy, impenetrable forest was working against them. The thick fog, heavy rainfall, and dense underbrush made it nearly impossible to see very far ahead, and the steep ravines and muddy terrain made travel slow and dangerous. The police and rangers found it difficult to pinpoint exactly where she had gone after she was last seen by the group. There were no clear footprints or signs of a movement, and even the dogs brought in for the search struggled to pick up her scent in the wet, heavily wooded terrain. The lack of concrete clues left the investigation in a frustrating limbo. The search teams expanded their efforts, widening the search area and checking nearby villages and local communities, hoping to find someone who had seen Sophia. They even spoke with local trackers and villagers, asking if they had noticed anything unusual or heard of anyone matching her description. But still, no one could offer any useful information. It was as if she had simply vanished, without leaving a trace. As the days turned into weeks, the situation grew even more tense. Some began to speculate whether Sophia had fallen victim to a wild animal, particularly in the more isolated areas of the park. The rangers were quick to dismiss this idea. However, while the forest was home to predators like lions and leopards, the likelihood of one of these animals attacking a human in such a populated area was slim. And, given the absence of any signs of a struggle or animal tracks near her belongings, the animal attack theory seemed increasingly unlikely. Another theory that emerged was that Sophia had gotten lost while exploring the forest on her own. The possibility that she had wandered deeper into the jungle, separated from the group in the excitement of the trek, was considered by many. There were large areas of the park that were unmarked and difficult to navigate, even for the most experienced trekkers. The dense vegetation and confusing landscape made it easy to become disoriented. Some speculated that Sophia, overwhelmed by the beauty and mystery of her surroundings, had lost her bearings, not realizing how far she had gone. The investigation also turned toward the possibility of foul play, though it was hard to find any evidence that pointed in that direction. Local authorities questioned the members of the safari group, as well as the guides and park rangers who had been with her. They were all questioned in detail about their actions on the day of her disappearance, but nothing in their accounts seemed to suggest any wrongdoing or unusual behavior. The guides had followed protocol, and there was no indication that anyone in the group had acted suspiciously. Despite the mounting pressure and the growing desperation, the search teams remained focused. They explored caves and remote areas of the park where few had ventured, hoping to find a clue that might lead them to Sophia. They combed through the surrounding rivers, ravines, and waterfalls, areas that could potentially hide evidence if Sophia had fallen or gotten trapped. Still, no concrete evidence emerged, and the search eventually became a grueling process of revisiting places and hoping for new leads. Time continued to pass without any major breakthroughs, and with each passing day, the feeling of helplessness and uncertainty weighed heavier on everyone involved. Sophia's family held on to their hope, refusing to believe that their daughter was truly lost forever. They held on to the idea that, somehow, they would find her, that they would uncover the truth and bring her home. But despite all the efforts and the exhaustion of the search teams, Sophia Koetsier remained missing, and the mystery of her disappearance lingered in the minds of all those who had known her. Let's check out different theories about what happened to Sophia Koetsier. Did anyone suggest something suspicious, or was it just an unfortunate accident? As the days turned into weeks with no concrete answers, various theories about what happened to Sophia Koetsier began to emerge. Her disappearance baffled not only her family and friends, but also the authorities and the local community. Without any solid clues or evidence, the possibilities seemed endless, and each new theory sparked more questions than answers. One of the first theories that surfaced was the idea that Sophia had simply gotten lost in the vast, dense jungle of windy, impenetrable forest. This was a popular suggestion among the park rangers and locals, who were familiar with the area's tricky terrain. The forest was known for its thick vegetation, winding paths, and steep ravines, making it easy to lose one's bearings. Sophia, excited by the sight of the gorillas and caught up in the adventure of the moment, might have wandered too far from the group, unknowingly straying off the beaten path. With the heavy fog and rain that often rolled in, it would have been easy for her to become disoriented. In the confusion of the dense forest, she could have inadvertently ventured deeper into the jungle, unable to find a way back. While this seemed plausible, the lack of any signs of a movement in the area where she was last seen raised doubts. The forest was thoroughly searched, and even the most experienced trackers struggled to pick up her scent. There were no obvious footprints leading away from the group's last known location. This made many wonder if the theory of Sophia simply getting lost was too simple to explain the situation. Another theory that emerged was that Sophia had met with some kind of danger, perhaps from the wildlife that roamed the forest. Uganda was home to many wild animals, including predators like leopards and lions, though these creatures generally stayed away from human settlements. Some speculated that Sophia, in her excitement to explore, might have wandered into the territory of one of these animals. While the rangers and experts in the area were quick to rule out an animal attack, due to the lack of any signs of a struggle, this theory remained a source of tension among her family and friends. The thought of a wild animal preying on her was a horrific possibility, though there was no evidence to support it. The absence of any animal tracks near her belongings and the lack of bite marks or scratches on her possessions seemed to make this theory less likely. There was also the possibility that Sophia had fallen into one of the many ravines or steep gorges that were scattered throughout the park. The area where she had been trekking was known for its rugged terrain, and it was easy to imagine someone slipping or stumbling into an unseen crevice. If Sophia had fallen, it was possible that she had become trapped or injured in a place that was difficult to access. The rangers and search teams had checked nearby rivers and ravines, but no body was found, which made this theory more complicated. Yet, the steep slopes and unpredictable landscape did make this possibility somewhat credible. Despite the seemingly logical nature of these theories, some began to wonder if there was something more sinister at play. The idea of foul play emerged as a darker possibility, though it remained a sensitive subject. In a place like Uganda, where tourism and safaris were an essential part of the economy, the idea that someone within the safari group or local guide could have had a hand in Sophia's disappearance was a chilling thought. Some of her family members considered this theory, especially as they learned that a few of the guides on the safari had been working for the tour company for years, but no one seemed to know much about their personal histories. This suspicion led to a careful re-examination of the guides and the other tourists who had been with Sophia on the trek. The authorities questioned everyone involved in the safari group thoroughly, searching for any signs that one of them might have been responsible for her disappearance. While some of the guides had previously been involved in other safari tours, none had any criminal records or history of inappropriate behavior. All the members of the tour group were cleared of any wrongdoing, and there was no physical evidence to suggest foul play. But the thought of someone being involved in Sophia's disappearance lingered in the back of her family's mind. They couldn't shake the feeling that there was something they weren't being told. Another theory that some suggested was that Sophia may have run into trouble with another person, perhaps someone outside the safari group or a local who had taken advantage of her isolation in the jungle. There were no reports of robberies or confrontations, but the idea that Sophia could have crossed paths with someone dangerous in the remote areas of Uganda seemed possible. However, this theory was difficult to prove, and again, there were no concrete leads to support it. Her belongings had not been taken, and there was no sign that she had been forced to leave in a hurry. As more time passed without any answers, the theory that seemed most plausible to many involved Sophia simply having an accident, whether by getting lost, falling, or encountering some kind of environmental hazard, while exploring the vast wilderness of Burundi. It was an unfortunate tragedy, one that seemed to be the result of an adventurous spirit and the unpredictability of nature. But even this theory did little to ease the pain and confusion that gripped Sophia's family and friends. They couldn't reconcile the fact that such a bright, adventurous young woman could simply disappear, never to return. In the absence of clear answers, the theories continued to swirl around Sophia's disappearance. Her family remained hopeful but devastated, clinging to the idea that they would find her and bring her home. As each day passed without resolution, the once vibrant dream of adventure became overshadowed by fear and sorrow. And while the theories about what happened to Sophia varied, one thing remained certain. Her disappearance was a tragedy that left everyone searching for the truth, hoping for answers, and mourning the young woman who had set off to experience the world but never returned. Despite the tireless efforts of the authorities, search teams, and volunteers, the case of Sophia Koetsier's disappearance remained unsolved for an agonizingly long time. The weeks that followed her vanishing in Uganda were marked by relentless searching, countless theories, and an overwhelming sense of confusion. As the search area expanded and the months dragged on, the possibility of finding Sophia seemed to grow more and more remote. The Ugandan authorities, in cooperation with the Dutch embassy, continued to conduct periodic checks of the locations Sophia had last been seen, hoping to find new leads. But the forest, dense and wild, kept its secrets hidden. The team searched every inch of the ground they could reach, using dogs, drones, and even helicopters. But there was no sign of Sophia. No new clues. No new information. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. Sophia's family, devastated by the lack of progress, struggled to cope with the uncertainty. Her mother, Anna, visited Uganda multiple times during the search, each time holding on to the hope that her daughter would be found. She spent days speaking with local authorities, asking questions, and sharing memories of Sophia with the searchers. Her determination to find answers never wavered, but with each failed search, it became harder to hold on to hope. As the months passed without resolution, the case grew colder. Theories continued to swirl, but nothing solid came to light. The idea that Sophia had become lost in the forest remained the most plausible explanation, but it didn't provide closure for her family. They were left with questions, and no amount of time or effort seemed to bring them any closer to the answers they so desperately needed. It wasn't until a full year later that a breakthrough occurred, one that was both shocking and tragic. During a routine patrol of the Burundi impenetrable forest, a local ranger stumbled across a small, hidden cave deep in the forest. It had been previously overlooked during the search efforts due to its remote location and difficult access. Inside the cave, the ranger discovered a few items that immediately brought the case back into focus. Among the scattered debris, There was a torn piece of clothing that matched the fabric of the jacket Sophia had been wearing on the day of her disappearance. Along with it were some personal items, a small wallet, a phone, and a broken camera that appeared to be Sophia's. These discoveries were enough to reignite the investigation. The authorities quickly mobilized a team to examine the cave and its surroundings more thoroughly. After days of carefully combing the area, they found traces of footprints that led deeper into the cave, and in the corner, the body of Sophia Koetsier. The discovery was devastating for her family. They had never stopped hoping for a different outcome, but now, after all the time and effort, the search had ended tragically. It was clear that Sophia had been lost in the forest, possibly after wandering too far off the trail. The official cause of death was ruled to be accidental, likely the result of a fall or injury sustained while she was lost. There were no signs of foul play or wild animal involvement, just the simple and heartbreaking result of a young woman getting lost in the unforgiving wilderness. The authorities concluded that Sophia's death was a tragic accident, a mistake made in the pursuit of an adventure she loved so much. The forest, with its beauty and dangers, had claimed her, and she had become yet another reminder of how unpredictable nature could be. The case, although officially resolved, left many unanswered questions and a profound sense of sadness. For Sophia's family, the discovery of her body brought a sense of closure, but it didn't ease their grief. They had spent so much time hoping that Sophia was alive, that she had somehow found a way to survive and make her way back. But the reality was far harsher than they had imagined. Her family brought her body back to the Netherlands, where they held a quiet, private memorial in her honor. Sophia's life, so full of promise, had been cut short by a simple misstep in the wilds of Africa. Though the case was solved, the emotional toll it took on her family and friends was immeasurable. They had learned, the hard way, that adventure could sometimes have a price. Sophia's love for travel, nature, and wildlife had taken her to the ends of the earth, but it also led her into a situation that none of them could have anticipated. They would always remember her, not for how she died, but for the incredible spirit she had, the love she had for the world, and the dreams she had yet to fulfill. In the end, Sophia Koetsier's story became a somber reminder of the risks that come with the pursuit of adventure and the unpredictable power of nature. Her family, although devastated, carried on her legacy of love for the world, sharing her passion for travel, wildlife, and exploration, hoping to inspire others to follow their dreams, but always with caution and respect for the world around them. Sophia Koetsier's tragic story has left a deep impact on those who knew her, as well as on anyone who has heard her story. While her life was cut short in a way that no one could have predicted, the lessons from her adventure, especially her love for travel and the pursuit of discovery, have become a reminder of the importance of safety and awareness, particularly when venturing into unfamiliar territories. Her story serves as both an inspiration and a cautionary tale for those who travel alone. One of the first things Sophia's story teaches us is the importance of thorough preparation and research before traveling, especially when going to places that are remote or unfamiliar. Sophia had done a lot of research about Uganda before her trip, and she had planned out her itinerary with care. She was excited about the wildlife, the culture, and the beauty of the country, and she was well aware of the challenges she might face during her safari and trekking adventures. However, even with all her preparation, the unpredictability of nature and the complexity of the terrain reminded everyone that even the best prepared traveler can find themselves in unexpected situations. Sophia's story highlights the necessity of understanding the environment one is traveling to. It's important to have a clear sense of the geography, climate, local customs, and potential dangers. Knowing what to expect can help travelers make better decisions in unfamiliar settings. Sophia's misstep in the jungle was, in part, a result of how easy it can be to get lost when there's a lack of clear signage, difficult terrain, and changing weather conditions. Travelers should always be prepared for the unexpected by researching the area and understanding the challenges they might face on their journey. Sophia's disappearance also serves as a reminder of how important it is to stay aware of one's surroundings while traveling, especially in isolated areas. Sophia's adventurous spirit and excitement about the gorillas was shared by everyone who traveled with her, but her journey turned into a cautionary tale of how easily excitement can lead to unintended risks. Her story teaches us that, no matter how experienced a traveler might be, It's easy to become distracted or caught up in the moment, especially in a place that feels as magical and overwhelming as windy, impenetrable forest. It's essential to stay aware and alert at all times, even in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Travelers should avoid going off the beaten path without a guide or without informing others of their whereabouts. Sophia wandered off from the group during her trek, and that decision ultimately led to her tragic fate. While curiosity and exploration are part of the joy of travel, it's crucial to balance that with caution. When exploring unknown places, especially forests or remote areas, it's always best to stay with a group or follow designated trails and paths. It's easy to forget that nature can be as dangerous as it is beautiful, and it's not always forgiving when things go wrong. Sophia's story also teaches us about the importance of traveling with companions or professional guides, particularly in areas that are remote or unfamiliar. Traveling alone, especially in areas that are wild and challenging, can make it harder to get help in case something goes wrong. While Sophia was an experienced traveler, the situation she found herself in, separated from the group in dense jungle, was difficult for anyone to navigate, let alone someone alone and unprepared for the dangers of the environment. Having a guide who knows the area and can lead travelers through the terrain safely is essential in places like windy, impenetrable forest. Professional guides are trained to handle the challenges of the landscape and know what to do if someone gets lost or is in danger. In Sophia's case, having a guide by her side or staying with her group could have made a difference. Travel companies and tour operators often stress the importance of having an experienced guide, not just for safety, but also for the wealth of knowledge they provide about the local culture and environment. Sophia's experience underlines the critical role a guide can play in navigating the unknown. Sophia's disappearance also underscores the importance of trusting local authorities and using local resources when traveling. In the aftermath of a disappearance, the Ugandan authorities worked tirelessly with the Dutch embassy to search for her. While the forest's vastness and the challenges of the terrain made it difficult to locate her, local guides, rangers, and officials were invaluable in organizing the search. They knew the land, the weather patterns, and the dangers of the area far better than any outsider would, and their expertise was essential in the ongoing efforts. Sophia's family also learned the importance of working closely with local authorities when something goes wrong during travel. They quickly established communication with the Ugandan authorities, which allowed them to stay informed and involved in the search efforts. It's crucial for travelers to have local contacts, whether through a tour guide, hotel, or embassy, in case of emergencies. Traveling with knowledge of emergency services and local law enforcement resources can make all the difference when disaster strikes. Lastly, Sophia's story reminds us that nature, while beautiful and awe-inspiring, is not always predictable or safe. The landscapes and animals we admire so much come with inherent risks, and respecting these risks is an essential part of responsible travel. The jungles of Uganda, while a paradise for wildlife lovers, are also treacherous and unpredictable. The story of Sophia's journey is a reminder to always approach nature with respect, awareness, and a readiness to handle the unpredictable. Traveling is about experiencing the world and discovering its wonders, but it is also about recognizing the risks involved and taking the necessary precautions to protect oneself. Sophia's story, while tragic, offers these valuable lessons to all travelers, young and old, experienced and new. Her love for adventure and her thirst for discovery continue to inspire those who hear her story, but it's a fate that serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of staying safe, being prepared, and respecting the places we visit. Sophia Koetsier's life and the lessons from her journey will remain in the hearts of those who knew her and those who have heard her story. Through her love of travel, she taught us all that while the world is a beautiful place to explore, it is also one that requires careful thought, preparation, and the awareness of its unpredictability. How her disappearance affected her family and friends. Sophia Koetsier's disappearance had a profound and lasting impact on her family and friends. The uncertainty of her fate, the endless days spent searching, and the agonizing wait for answers were a devastating experience for everyone who loved her. Sophia had always been the spark in any room she entered, the adventurous, lively young woman whose passion for life was contagious. Her sudden and unexplained disappearance left a hole that could never truly be filled, and the emotional toll on her family was immense. Sophia's mother, Anna, was particularly affected by the loss. She had always been her daughter's biggest supporter, encouraging her to travel, explore, and follow her dreams. As a mother, Anna had always known that traveling to distant places could be risky, but she never imagined that her daughter's life would be cut short in such a tragic way. Anna spent countless hours in Uganda, walking through the forest, talking to local authorities, and trying to keep her hopes up, despite the growing fears that Sophia might not be found alive. The emotional strain of not knowing what had happened to her daughter was unbearable, and it only grew heavier as the search stretched on for months. Eric, Sophia's father, struggled with his own feelings of helplessness and heartbreak. As a father, he wanted to protect his daughter from anything that could harm her, but there was nothing he could do. The pain of not knowing where Sophia was or what had happened to her was something he couldn't escape. The day her body was found, while it brought some closure, it didn't ease the grief of losing her. It felt as if the world had stopped, and in many ways, it had. The family was left to pick up the pieces of their lives, trying to make sense of a tragedy that seemed impossible to understand. Her friends, too, were deeply affected by a disappearance. Sophia had a close-knit circle of friends who shared her love of adventure and exploration. They were the ones who had often traveled with her, who had shared in her dreams and ambitions. To suddenly lose her without warning, without any real explanation, left them in a state of shock and sorrow. They remembered her as someone who brought energy and excitement wherever she went, and her absence left a void in their lives that no one could fill. Her friends stayed in close contact with her family throughout the search, offering emotional support and helping to spread the word about Sophia's disappearance, but nothing could prepare them for the finality of her loss. The grief was a long and difficult journey for Sophia's family and friends. In the wake of her disappearance, there were days when it felt impossible to move forward, and others when they could barely imagine a world without her. However, after months of searching, questioning, and mourning, the discovery of a body in the forest, though heartbreaking, allowed her family to begin the slow and painful process of healing. It didn't bring them back the daughter, sister, or friend they had lost, but it gave them the opportunity to say goodbye and to give her a final resting place, surrounded by love and remembrance. Anna and Eric eventually brought Sophia's body back to the Netherlands, where they held a quiet, intimate memorial service to honor her memory. Family, friends, and loved ones gathered to share stories about Sophia, the girl who had lived life to the fullest, who had dreamed big, and who had inspired everyone around her to do the same. They spoke of her adventurous spirit, her contagious laugh, and her deep love for animals and nature. The memorial was a celebration of her life, rather than focusing on the tragedy of her death. They wanted to remember the Sophia who had always smiled in the face of uncertainty, the Sophia who had made the world a better place simply by being in it. In the years following Sophia's death, her family and friends found ways to honor her memory in ways that reflected the things she loved most: travel, adventure, and the natural world. Her family established a foundation in her name, dedicated to wildlife conservation and the protection of endangered species. They felt that this was the best way to honor Sophia's life and her love for the world's wildlife, particularly the gorillas and elephants she had so desperately wanted to see. The foundation works with local communities in Uganda and other parts of Africa to raise awareness about conservation efforts and to fund educational programs that teach children and young adults about the importance of protecting the planet's wildlife. Sophia's friends, many of whom had shared her love for exploration, also found ways to continue her legacy. They created a scholarship in her name, aimed at helping young people who wanted to pursue careers in wildlife conservation, travel journalism, or environmental science, fields that Sophia had always dreamed of working in. The scholarship provides financial support to those who want to follow their passion for the natural world, just as Sophia had. It is a way for her friends to ensure that her spirit of adventure and love for animals continues to inspire future generations. Sophia's story was also shared widely on social media, where family and friends posted tributes to her life. People who had never met her but were touched by her story left messages of support and admiration for her adventurous spirit. The hashtag #Sophia'sLegacy became a symbol of hope and remembrance, encouraging others to live their lives with the same sense of passion and curiosity that Sophia had shown. While the pain of losing Sophia will never fully go away, her family and friends find comfort in knowing that her life and the lessons she left behind have had a lasting impact. Sophia's story continues to inspire others to travel responsibly, to respect nature, and to cherish every moment. Her legacy is one of curiosity, passion, and a deep love for the world she explored. The foundation in her name and the scholarship program ensure that her love for wildlife, adventure, and conservation lives on, helping to inspire young people to follow in her footsteps and make the world a better place. Sophia's disappearance and the search for her were a dark chapter in the lives of those who loved her, but through their grief, they have found ways to turn their sorrow into something positive. Sophia's memory lives on in the stories shared by her family, the work of the foundation, and in the hearts of everyone who knew her. Though her life was tragically cut short, the lessons from her journey, to live with passion, to respect the world around you, and to follow your dreams, will continue to inspire for years to come.